For today, let's talk about hip mobility, specifically on the anterior side of the body, more in the hip flexors, quads, and get that all opened up. So I'll be going over a couple stretches to help open it up, and then past that, if you have any type of nerve sensations, I'll go over how you can utilize these stretches to then combine it with nerve gliding or nerve flossing to relieve any numbness, tingling you might be experiencing on the front or inside of the leg. So the couch stretch can be done on the couch, as the name implies, but one of the more comfortable ways that I've found to use it is either with a Smith machine set up with one of those foam pads, or a leg extension or leg curl machine with it dropped down a little bit lower. So I'll set a nice type of padding down here so that I can push onto the knee, not worry about any pain being caused there, taking me out of the stretch. So I'll get started like this. Kind of set up like a Bulgarian. Leg goes back, drop the knee to the floor. As I'm starting to initiate it, I'm trying to keep the hips nice and square. I'm gonna push backwards into the ankle to get the quad stretching. And while I'm doing that, I'm actively trying to engage the glute and get the hip pushing forward. So hip squared, quad stretching backwards, hip pushing forward. You'll feel it start to intensify all the way through here. That is the first portion of the stretch. And then you can intensify it by building into it and get more hip flexor by pushing hip further. You can get more quad by pushing further back into it and leaning back. Or you can even get more of the internal rotators and this seriously deep hip flexor muscles by twisting into it entirely and pushing forward at the same time. That'll create a massive lengthening through the hip flexors and TFL. And then just come out gently, just the way you would. But when you're nerve flossing this side, we'll go ahead and set up exactly like we're doing a couch stretch. Extend the hip forward through, but we need more distance from the head where the nerves are originating all the way down to the toes. So I like to keep the toes pointed down because it feels a little bit longer. I feel the sensation more. And then I'll push into it, exaggerate the stretch, and I'll try and get the head as high as possible to start. I'll lengthen it out by bending the head forward and trying to create that distance without losing the stretch in the quads, and I'm feeling that intensify straight through here and down. And then I'll go back, shorten it, and then route it back down, and just glide between these two positions until the hip opens up. It won't be an immediate thing, but if you do this properly, about like 6 to 8 weeks, nerve sensations should start to go down in certain areas. One of my other favorite stretches for the hip flexors is going to be an ATG split squat or ass to grass. I like it a little bit elevated with the foot up on one of these heel elevators. Just feels a little bit more comfortable. I have terrible ankle mobility. If it's unnecessary for you, go ahead and just elevate it on a block just to get the extra distance between the feet and a bigger stretch through the glutes and hip flexors. Essentially, just going to get started like this. Get up on the box, get planted, hips squared, start to go back into that split squat, and then we'll go wherever we can relatively uncomfortably hold the hips squared. I'm feeling a massive stretching sensation through the hip flexor on the left side, and then we'll go ahead and just push ever deeper into it, not letting the hips unsquare themselves. If you have to manipulate the hips or rotate through it to get the hip flexor stretching more, that's not actually your hip flexor. You're just rotating through it and you're losing the stretch entirely. You're creating more discomfort for less actual results. So what that will look like when we're flossing on the other side, though, so you can see, is get set up, split squat back, initiate the stretch, drop the knee to the floor, and start to push forward, just like we were with the couch stretch, hips squared, and then I'm going to jut the head forward, bring it all the way down to lengthen that nerve from top to bottom. And then I'll come back out of it. And I like to go a little bit of side to side manipulation. Rolling through the motion of lengthening and shortening that nerve on repeat, just letting it glide through all the channels that it pulls through in the body.